I woke up to the sound of a chainsaw and Karen's smug voice yelling, "This creek's mine now, Tom." Only she didn't know she'd just declared war on a federally protected fishery and me. It was a Saturday morning in April, the kind of crisp Tennessee dawn where the mist hangs low over the fields and the fish are practically begging to be caught. I'd planned to spend it knee-deep in my creek, the one I've fished since I was a kid, the one my dad taught me to read like a book, where the trout hide, where the current slows just right. Instead, I got Karen, and her damn fence. I'm Tom, 52, widower, no kids, just a quiet little house on 5 acres outside Murfreesboro. I've lived here 20 years, long enough to know every deer trail and every busybody in the HOA. Karen moved in 2 years ago, a peroxide blonde tornado with a Lexus and a yapping Pomeranian named Mr. Piddles. She's the type who'd complain your grass is 3/16 of an inch too long, then sick the HOA on you faster than you can say, "Mind your own business." But this was next-level Karen. I stumbled out onto my back porch, coffee sloshing in my mug, and there she was, strutting around like she'd just conquered Normandy. Behind her, a couple of sweaty guys in stained tank tops were hammering posts into the creek bed, stringing up a gaudy metal fence that looked like it belonged in a junkyard, not my backyard. The creek, my creek, was now sliced in half, with her side marked off like she was planning a gated community for Mr. Piddles and his flea-bitten pals. "Morning, Tom," she chirped, hands on her hips, that fake smile stretched tight enough to crack her Botox. "I had a survey done. Turns out this creek's on my property. Hope you don't mind." Mind? Oh, I minded. I minded like a bear minds you stealing his honey. That creek wasn't just water. It was where I scattered my dad's ashes 10 years ago, where I go when the world gets too loud. And now Karen, with her dollar store sunglasses and her survey, that probably came from some guy named Bubba with a tape measure and a six-pack, thought she could claim it? I don't think so. I stomped down the hill, boots sinking into the damp grass, and got a closer look. The fence was an eyesore, rusted in spots, leaning already, cutting right through the creek so the water churned against it like it was pissed off too. One of the workers, a kid with a mullet and a dip-stained grin, shrugged at me. "Lady paid us cash. Said it's her land." "Her land?" I growled. "I've been fishing this creek since you were in diapers, kid. That's my access she's blocking." Karen waved a manicured hand like she was shooing a fly. "Take it up with the HOA, Tom. The survey's legit. Maybe you should have paid more attention to your property lines." "Legit?" Her survey guy looked like he'd measured with a beer can and a prayer. I could feel my blood pressure climbing, the kind of mad where you either punch something or start plotting. I chose plotting. See, I'm not the guy who yells in the moment. I'm the guy who waits, watches, and then buries you with your own shovel. Karen didn't know it yet, but she just lit the fuse. I stood there, staring at that fence, the water lapping against it like it was begging me to do something. My mind was racing, property deeds, HOA bylaws, maybe a chainsaw of my own. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I turned back to the house, already thinking about the old filing cabinet in my attic, the one with my dad's papers. If there was a deed, a map, anything, I'd find it. Karen wanted a fight? She'd get one. Hey, you guys reading this, what do you think's gonna happen next? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I'll bet some of you grizzled old-timers have dealt with a Karen like this. Maybe you've got a story about the time your own neighbor tried to steal your fishing hole or your front yard. Let me know. I'm itching to see if you're on the right track, because this tale's about to get wilder than a catfish on a hook. Back inside, I set my coffee down and took a deep breath. Karen was out there cackling with her workers, probably planning to slap a "no trespassing" sign on her masterpiece. She thought she'd won. She thought I'd just roll over, maybe grumble to my buddies at the bar and let it go. But here's the thing about guys like me, we don't let go. Not when it's personal. Not when it's our creek. I climbed the attic stairs, dust kicking up with every step, and started rifling through boxes. Somewhere in there was proof. Proof that creek was mine. Proof Karen had just stepped in something she couldn't scrape off her designer boots. And if I was lucky, maybe something even bigger. Because here's a little hint. That creek's not just some muddy trickle. It's got secrets. Secrets Karen's about to wish she'd never messed with. But that's for next time. For now, I was a man on a mission, fueled by coffee, spite, and the memory of my dad's voice saying, "Tom, don't let nobody take what's yours." Karen had no idea the storm she'd just unleashed. Karen threw a barbecue to celebrate her creek, but I found a dusty old deed in my attic that says otherwise. By Sunday afternoon, she'd turned her backyard into a circus. A creek claim party, she Ascot style, complete with a banner strung between two poplars that read Karen's Oasis in glittery purple letters. I watched from my porch, binoculars in hand, as she pranced around in a sundress 2 sizes too small, waving a spatula like it was a scepter. Her HOA cronies clapped like trained seals, sipping margaritas and toasting her victory. Meanwhile, I was up to my elbows in attic dust, digging for ammo to take her down. And let me tell you, when I found that deed, it was like striking gold in a pigsty. After that fence went up yesterday, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Karen's smug grin, heard her nasal "hope you don't mind," like a mosquito buzzing in my ear. So I hit the attic at dawn, tearing through boxes of my dad's old stuff. Tax returns, fishing licenses, a Polaroid of me with my first bass. Then, buried under a stack of field and stream magazines, I found it. A yellowed envelope marked Property Docs, 1972. Inside was a deed, hand-drawn map and all, showing the creek's boundary clear as day. And guess what? It's mine. Every ripple, every rock, every trout darting under the surface mine. Karen's little victory lap was about to hit a brick wall. Down the hill, her party was in full swing. She'd strung up fairy lights along that ugly fence, like it was some kind of trophy. The smell of grilled burgers wafted over, mocking me. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, too mad to care. Her Pomeranian, Mr. Piddles, yapped nonstop, chasing a kid who'd wandered too close to Karen's oasis. I could hear her bragging to Gary, the HOA's rules lawyer, about how she'd put Tom in his place. Gary's the type who'd fine you for sneezing too loud. A balding weasel in khakis who nodded along like Karen was Napoleon reincarnated. "It's all legal, Tom," he'd warned me earlier, puffing out his chest. "Don't disturb the peace, or we'll have to act. I'd like to see him try. I sat on my couch, deed spread out on the coffee table, sipping a lukewarm Bud Light. The map was a beauty, inked in my dad's blocky handwriting, with the creek labeled Tom's Spot in one corner. It wasn't just proof. It was personal. I could still hear him saying, "This is our place, son. Don't let nobody mess with it." Karen didn't just fence off my water. She fenced off my memories. And that, boys, is where she crossed the line from annoying to enemy number one. Her party got louder. Some go-doffel karaoke version of Sweet Home Alabama, blaring through a portable speaker. I smirked, imagining her face when I dropped this deed on her like a live grenade. Oh, I could march down there right now, shove it under her nose, and watch her choke on her own margarita. But no, I'm not that guy. I don't storm in half-cocked. I'm the guy who waits, who plans, who lets you hang yourself with your own rope. And Karen was tying the noose real nice. I leaned back, running my thumb over the deed's faded seal. It wasn't just about the boundary anymore. Something about this creek felt bigger, like maybe there was more to it than I'd realized. Dad used to talk about how the trout here were special, how the state stocked them back in the 60s. Could that mean something? I filed that thought away, figuring I'd call the county clerk tomorrow. For now, I had enough to ruin Karen's day, and that was a start. Her laughter floated up again, sharp and fake, like she was auditioning for a reality show. "To new beginnings," she toasted, clinking glasses with her posse. New beginnings, my ass. She didn't know it yet, but her little empire was built on quicksand, and I was about to pull the plug. I pictured her trying to explain this to her husband, Rick, a quiet guy who mows the lawn and nods like a bobblehead. Poor bastard probably didn't sign up for this when he said, "I do." I stood up, stretched, and glanced out the window. The sun was dipping low, painting the creek gold where it peeked through her stupid fence. It was still mine. I could feel it in my bones. Karen thought she'd won. Thought she could strut around like Queen of the Hill. But I've been around long enough to know. You don't mess with a man's land, his fish, or his ghosts. She'd learned that the hard way. I folded the deed, tucked it into my shirt pocket, and cracked another beer. Tomorrow, I'd start digging deeper, county records, old-timers at the bait shop, maybe even a lawyer if it came to that. Karen's victory lap was cute, but it was about to crash and burn. And when it did, I'd be right here, sipping my bud, watching her squirm. I called the county office to check my deed, and they dropped a bombshell. This creek's guarded by federal law. Monday morning, I was up before the roosters, fueled by spite and a pot of black coffee strong enough to wake a coma patient. Karen's creek claim party had left my blood boiling all weekend, her karaoke screech still echoing in my skull like a bad hangover. I wasn't just fighting for my fishing spot anymore. This was war. So I grabbed that dusty deed from 1972, hopped in my beat-up Ford F-150, and hauled ass to the Rutherford County Clerk's office. What I found there, let's just say Karen's about to learn that karma's got a badge and a rulebook. The clerk's office smelled like old paper and regret, the kind of place where dreams of bureaucracy go to die. I slid my deed across the counter to a gray-haired woman named Doris, who peered at it through bifocals like she was decoding the Dead Sea Scrolls. "Let's see what we've got here, Han," she muttered, tapping away at a computer older than my truck. I leaned against the counter, half expecting her to say Karen's shady survey held water. Instead, Doris's eyes widened, and she let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned. You've got yourself a protected fishery, Mr. Harper." "A what now?" I said, straightening up. My heart did a little jig, half excitement, half disbelief. She spun her monitor toward me, pointing at a map dotted with red zones. "This creek, Harper's Run, right? It's under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Been that way since '68. Endangered trout species, federal oversight, the works. That fence your neighbor put up? Illegal as a $3 bill." Doris grinned, like she just handed me a winning lottery ticket. "You didn't know?" I didn't. But oh, I was about to love it. See, Dad always said the trout here were special. Slippery little bastards with speckled sides, tougher to catch than a greased pig. I thought he meant they were crafty, not that Uncle Sam had their backs. Turns out the feds stocked this creek decades ago to save some rare fish, and now it's got more protection than Fort Knox. Karen didn't just fence off my land. She'd poked a bear with a stick. A bear wearing a government-issued windbreaker. I drove home grinning like a kid on Christmas, the deed and a printout from Doris tucked in my glove box. My mind was racing, fines, lawsuits, maybe even jail time for Karen if she pushed it. I could see it now, her in an orange jumpsuit, Mr. Piddles whining from a kennel, that glittery Karen's Oasis banner shredded in the wind. It was almost too good. Almost. Back at the house, I stepped onto my porch and squinted down the hill. Karen was out there again, oblivious, directing those same mullet-headed workers to plant begonias along her creek bank. She'd swapped the sundress for yoga pants and a visor, barking orders like a drill sergeant on a power trip. No, closer to the water. I want it Instagram ready." The poor saps nodded, probably wishing they'd charged her double. I chuckled. Those flowers were about to be Exhibit A in a federal smackdown. I could have run down there, waved the printout in her face and watched her implode. But where's the fun in that? I'm 52, not 12. I don't swing wild. I build the trap, bait it, and wait for the prey to stumble in. So I kept my powder dry, plotting my next move. Step 1. Confirm this with someone who knows fish, not just deeds. Step 2. Let Karen dig her hole deeper. She was already halfway to China with those begonias. Sitting at my kitchen table, I flipped through the printout Doris gave me. Words like Clean Water Act and Endangered Species Violation jumped out. Legal dynamite. Fines could hit 5 figures easy, and that's before the feds got creative. I pictured a SWAT team of khaki-clad biologists storming her yard, confiscating her fence posts like evidence in a drug bust. Hell, I'd pay to see that. Maybe bring popcorn. Her laughter drifted up again. She was on the phone now, probably bragging to some HOA hag about her landscaping vision. I leaned back, sipping my coffee, and let the smugness wash over me. She thought she'd won, thought she'd turned my creek into her personal photo op. But this wasn't just about a boundary anymore. It was a federal case, and I had the ace up my sleeve. All I needed was a little more proof, a little more rope for her to hang herself with. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling for a fisheries expert. Someone who could back this up with science, not just county gossip. Karen's victory lap was still rolling, but the wheels were about to come off. She didn't know it yet, but she just turned a backyard spat into a government grudge match. And me? I was the guy holding the matchbook, ready to light the fuse. Karen dragged me to an HOA meeting to settle this. But I brought a secret weapon, a biologist. By Tuesday night, she'd upped the ante, filed a formal complaint with the HOA, claiming I was harassing her over her creek. The summons came in a crisp envelope, signed by Gary, the rules lawyer, in his shaky chicken scratch, demanding my presence at the Wednesday meeting. I could have ignored it, let her stew in her own nonsense, but I saw an opportunity. Karen wanted a showdown? Fine. I'd give her one she'd never forget. And I wasn't coming alone. The HOA meets in the community clubhouse, a squat brick box that smells like mothballs and burnt coffee. I walked in at 7 p.m. sharp, deed in my pocket, printout from Doris tucked under my arm, and Dr. Jim Ellis trailing behind me. Jim's a fisheries biologist I tracked down through a buddy at the bait shop, 60-something, grizzled as a bear, with a beard you could lose a wrench in. He'd spent 30 years studying Tennessee's waterways, and when I told him about Karen's fence, he'd cackled like a madman. Federal fishery, huh? Oh, she's screwed, son. I liked him already. The room was packed. 24 busybodies in folding chairs, sipping decaf and whispering like it was a damn courtroom drama. Karen sat up front, legs crossed, in a blazer that screamed, "I watch too much HGTV." Gary presided at a card table, gavel in hand, looking like a discount store dictator. "Order," he barked, banging the gavel so hard it wobbled. "We're here to address Mrs. Thompson's complaint against Mr. Harper. Karen, you have the floor." She stood, clutching a manila folder, her survey, and launched into a performance that'd make a soap opera blush. "Tom's been harassing me ever since I exercised my property rights," she whined, dabbing an imaginary tear. "He's jealous, plain and simple. I had a professional survey done, and this creek is mine. He needs to respect that or face consequences." She shot me a smirk, that Botox-tight grin I'd come to loathe, and slid the folder to Gary. The room murmured approval like she'd just won an Oscar. Gary nodded, all puffed up. "Tom, your response?" I stood slow, letting the silence stretch, then walked to the front with Jim in tow. "I've got a response, all right? But first, meet Dr. Ellis. He's got something to say about Karen's property rights." The crowd shifted, curious. Karen's smirk faltered, just a twitch, but I saw it. Jim cleared his throat, voice like gravel. "Evening, folks. I'm with the Tennessee Fisheries Commission, retired. That creek, Harper's Run, is a federally protected fishery under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Been that way since '68, thanks to an endangered trout species. That fence," he pointed at Karen's folder like it was trash, "illegal, blocks fish migration, violates the Clean Water Act. Fines start at $10,000, and that's if the feds are feeling generous. Which they ain't." The room went dead quiet. Gary's gavel hand froze mid-air. Karen's face went from Botox smile to, "I just ate a lemon" in 10 seconds flat. I stepped forward, sliding my deed and Doris's printout onto the table. "This is the original boundary, Gary. Creek's mine. Always has been. Karen's survey? Worth less than the paper it's printed on. And that fence? She's lucky I haven't called the feds yet." "Yet," Jim added, grinning. "Boy, I'd have called M yesterday." A ripple of gasps ran through the crowd. Karen sputtered, This is ridiculous. My surveyor said." "Your surveyor's a clown," I cut in. "Probably measured it with a yardstick and a hangover. The feds don't care what he says. They care about this." I tapped the printout. "Endangered species, federal law. You're in deep, Karen." Gary fumbled with the papers, sweat beading on his forehead. Well, this is unexpected. We'll need to review. Review what? I said, voice low. She broke the law, Gary. You gonna back her up? Or you gonna tell her to tear that fence down before the government does it for her? Karen jumped up, pointing a manicured nail at me. You're bluffing. This is harassment. I'll sue you, Tom Harper, I swear. Sit down, Karen, Jim growled. You're the one facing a lawsuit, or worse. Ever seen a federal agent confiscate a fence? It ain't pretty. She plopped back into her chair, red-faced, clutching her folder like a lifeline. The HOA board whispered furiously, half horrified, half thrilled at the drama. Gary banged the gavel again, weaker this time. Meeting adjourned. We'll reconvene later. I turned to leave, Jim at my side, and caught Karen's glare. Pure venom. This isn't over, Tom, she hissed. Oh, it's just getting started. I shot back, tipping my cap. Outside, Jim clapped me on the shoulder. You've got her on the ropes, son. What's next? Next? I said, grinning. I let her squirm. Then I dropped the hammer. Driving home, I replayed it all. Karen's meltdown, Gary's panic, the crowd's shock. I'd landed a solid punch, but the knockout was coming. That fence was still up, and Karen was still clueless. She thought she could lawyer up, out-talk me. But you don't out-talk the feds. And me? I was just the guy who'd point them her way. I heard sirens at dawn. Turns out the Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't mess around. Thursday morning broke gray and chilly, the kind of Tennessee day where the fog clings to the hills like a bad memory. I'd barely slept, still buzzing from the HOA showdown, replaying Karen's lemon-sour face in my head. After Dr. Ellis spooked her with talk of federal law, I'd made a quiet call to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service hotline, dropped the tip, gave the coordinates, and let nature or bureaucracy take its course. I didn't expect them to move this fast, but when those black SUVs rolled up my road at 6 a.m., sirens blaring, I knew Karen's reckoning had arrived. I stepped onto my porch, coffee in hand, as 3 vehicles screeched to a halt. 2 at Karen's place, 1 at the creek's edge. Men and women in khaki vests spilled out, badges glinting, walkie-talkies crackling like it was a damn SWAT raid. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, one shouted. A stocky guy with a buzz cut and a clipboard. Step away from the water, ma'am. Karen stumbled out her back door in a fluffy robe, Mr. Piddles yapping at her heels, her hair a mess of rollers. It was beautiful. I leaned against my railing, sipping slow, watching the chaos unfold. Karen waved her arms, voice shrill enough to wake the dead. What is this? I'm on my property. You can't just... Buzz cut her off, holding up a hand. Ma'am, this creek's a protected fishery. That fence violates federal law. We've got a cease and desist order, effective now. He slapped a stack of papers into her hands. Official, stamped, the kind of thing that makes lawyers cry. She blinked at it, then tried her charm. Oh, officers, it's just a little fence. I'm beautifying the area. Instagram-worthy, you know? She batted her lashes, clutching her robe like a damsel in distress. Buzzcut didn't blink. Tell it to the judge, ma'am. You're looking at a $10,000 fine, minimum plus removal costs. Step back. Karen's flirting with a guy who could arrest her grandma and not flinch was the funniest thing I'd seen all week. I set my mug down and strolled closer, staying on my side of the line. The agents were already at the creek, taping off the fence with yellow caution tape. Ironic, since it matched Karen's hair. One woman, wiry with a ponytail, snapped photos of the begonias mashed into the bank. Habitat disruption, she muttered into a recorder. Potential spawning ground damage. Another guy hauled out a measuring tape, barking numbers to a partner. It was a full-on crime scene, and Karen was the perp. She spotted me and stormed over, robe flapping, rollers bouncing. You did this, Tom. You called them, you spiteful old. Buzzcut stepped between us, calm as a brick wall. Ma'am, back off. You're in enough trouble. She froze, mouth flapping like a trout on a line, then spun back to her yard, yelling at the agents. This is outrageous. I'll sue. I'll call my lawyer. Good luck, I called, loud enough for her to hear. Feds don't scare easy. She glared daggers, but I just grinned. Spiteful? Sure. Old? Maybe. But I'd outplayed her, and that felt better than a cold beer on a hot day. The agents worked fast. One started unhooking the fence posts, metal clanging as they hit the ground. Karen shrieked, "You can't touch that. It's mine." Ponytail lady shot back, "Not anymore. It's evidence. Evidence." I damn near laughed out loud. They were treating her junkyard fence like it belonged in a museum or a landfill. Either way, it was coming down and I had a front row seat. By 7 a.m., half the neighborhood was gawking from their porches. Old man Jenkins with his binoculars, the Millers peeking through blinds. Gary the HOA weasel slunk over, khakis wrinkled, looking like he'd swallowed a bug. "Tom, what's going on?" he stammered. I nodded at the chaos. "Karen's learning about federal law, Gary. You might want to update your rulebook." He scurried off, probably to draft a memo about fence etiquette. Karen kept pacing, phone to her ear, yelling at her husband, Rick. I figured, "Get home now. They're ruining everything." Poor Rick. Guy's probably hiding at work, praying she doesn't drag him into this mess. The agents ignored her, methodical as ants dismantling a picnic. Buzzcut approached me, clipboard in hand. "You the tipster?" "Yes, sir," I said, tipping my cap. "That creek's been mine since '72. She fenced it off last week." He grunted, jotting a note. "Good call. We'll handle it. She's got 48 hours to comply, or it's contempt." Contempt. I liked the sound of that. He handed me a card, Agent Mike Torres. "Call if she pulls anything else." I pocketed it, feeling like I just joined the winning team. As the SUVs peeled out, leaving Karen with her papers and a half-dismantled fence, I leaned back on my porch. The creek flowed free again, at least partly. Her begonias were toast, her oasis a muddy mess. She stood there, robes soaked from stomping around, rollers askew, staring at the wreckage. I raised my coffee mug in a mock toast. She didn't wave back. This wasn't the end, not yet. Karen's too stubborn to quit, and I'm too ornery to let her. The feds had landed the first blow, but the war wasn't over. I'd savor this round, though watching her squirm was worth every sleepless night. Karen lost it, tore down her own fence in a tantrum, then blamed me for the feds. Thursday afternoon rolled in hot and humid, the kind of Tennessee stickiness that makes you regret stepping outside. After the Fish and Wildlife crew left her with a $10,000 fine and a cease and desist, I figured she'd sulk for a bit, maybe call her lawyer and lick her wounds. Nope. By 2 p.m., I heard banging and screeching from down the hill. Karen, in a full-on meltdown, was ripping out what was left of her precious fence with her bare hands. And when she was done, she stormed my yard, pointing fingers like I'd personally sent the feds to ruin her life. It was glorious. I was tinkering in my garage, cleaning my fishing rods, dreaming of the creek's reopening, when the chaos started. Metal clanged like a junkyard symphony, followed by her voice, shrill as a banshee. "This is your fault, Tom." I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stepped out to watch the show. There she was, knee-deep in mud, yanking fence posts from the creek bank with the fury of a woman scorned. Her robe was gone, swapped for a tank top and shorts, hair wild without the rollers. Mr. Piddles cowering behind a bush like he knew the ship was sinking. She swung a post over her head, slamming it into the ground, screaming, "I'll show you. I'll show all of you." The begonias she'd planted were trampled underfoot, her oasis banner tangled in the wreckage. It was a tantrum for the ages, Oscar-worthy, if Oscars were handed out for entitled train wrecks. Neighbors peeked out again. Jenkins with his binoculars, the Millers now bold enough to stand on their lawn. I kept filming, steady as a rock, knowing this was gold. After 10 minutes of demolition, she dropped the last post, panting, covered in sweat and creek slime. Then she locked eyes on me, marched up the hill, and jabbed a muddy finger in my face. "You did this, you miserable old coot. You called those goons to ruin my life. My fence, my flowers, my dreams. Gone because of you. Her voice cracked, eyes wild, like she'd finally snapped under the weight of her own ego. I lowered the phone just enough to meet her glare. Karen, you built an illegal fence on a federal fishery. The feds didn't need my help to figure that out. You handed him the smoking gun. Maybe next time, check the law before you play pioneer. I smirked, calm as a Sunday morning. Oh, and smile, you're on camera. She froze, then lunged for the phone. I sidestepped, easy, she was too frazzled to land a hit. Give me that, she shrieked. You can't record me. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. Public meltdown on my property? Fair game, I said, pocketing the phone. Besides, you're trespassing. Want me to call the sheriff too? That stopped her cold. She stood there, chest heaving, mud dripping from her hands, realizing she just dug her hole deeper. I could have laughed. Hell, I wanted to, but I kept it cool. Let her stew in it. Then the HOA cavalry arrived. Gary waddled up, trailed by 2 board members, all wide-eyed at the carnage. Karen, what the hell are you doing? He yelped. You're destroying property. It's my fence, she snapped, spinning on him. I'll do what I want with it. Tom's the one you should fine. He's a menace. Gary glanced at me, then at the creek, then at the federal tape still fluttering in the breeze. He didn't say a word, just backed off, hands up, like he'd stumbled into a lion's den. That's when the kicker hit. One of the board members, a quiet guy named Phil, piped up. Karen, you just admitted that's your fence. On Tom's land, after the feds said it's illegal. HOA's fining you for property damage. $500 plus cleanup. Her jaw dropped, and I damn near dropped my phone laughing. The HOA, her HOA, turning on her? Poetic justice doesn't get sweeter than that. She stormed off, muttering about lawyers and revenge, leaving the creek a mess of twisted metal and crushed dreams. I stopped recording, leaned against my garage, and cracked a beer. The video was 12 minutes of pure chaos. Karen's legacy, preserved for posterity. I'd send it to Jim Ellis later. He'd get a kick out of it. Maybe post it online if she pushed me too far. Let the internet roast her alive. By dusk, word spread. Neighbors texting. HOA whispers buzzing. Karen's husband, Rick, finally showed up, pulling into their drive with a tired slump. She met him at the door, yelling, pointing my way. He just nodded, head down, and shuffled inside. Poor bastard was in for a long night. I sat on my porch as the sun dipped low, the creek glinting free again. Well, mostly. Her tantrum had cleared the last of the fence, but the feds would finish the job. Karen was down, bleeding from a dozen self-inflicted wounds, and I hadn't lifted a finger today. That's the beauty of revenge. Sometimes, you just sit back and let them bury themselves. She'd blamed me, sure, but she'd built the coffin, climbed in, and nailed it shut. This wasn't over. She'd claw back somehow. But for now, I'd won, and it felt damn good. Friday morning dawned clear and cool. The kind of Tennessee day that begs for a rod in your hand and a fish on the line. After Karen's epic meltdown, tearing down her own fence, screaming bloody murder, and earning herself an HOA fine, the dust finally settled. The feds came back, cleared the last of her mess, and by week's end, she was gone. House sold at a loss, tail between her legs, Mr. Piddles yapping into the sunset. Me, I got my creek back, a cold beer in the fridge, and a story to tell my buddies at the bar for years. Karen picked a fight with the wrong guy and I came out on top, hook, line, and sinker. The fish and wildlife crew rolled in early Friday, quieter this time. No sirens, just a pickup and a couple of agents in khakis. Agent Torres, the buzzcut guy from before, oversaw the cleanup, yanking out the last of Karen's posts, hauling off the yellow tape, even raking over her trampled begonias. All clear, Harper, he said, tipping his cap. Creek's yours again. She's got till Monday to pay the fine or it's court. I nodded, grinning. She'll pay, or she'll learn. He chuckled and drove off, leaving Harper's run free for the first time in a week. I walked down to the bank, boots crunching on fresh gravel, and stood where the fence used to be. The water flowed smooth now, trout darting under the surface. Those slippery little bastards my dad loved so much. I could almost hear him laughing, saying, "Told you, Tom. Don't let nobody take what's yours." This wasn't just a win over Karen. It was a win for him, for me, for every guy who's ever had a busybody try to steal his slice of peace. Karen's downfall was swift after Thursday's tantrum. The HOA fined her $500, plus another $200 for unsightly debris. Her own fence, mind you. Word got around she couldn't afford the federal $10,000 hit. Not with her Lexus payments and Rick's quiet resignation. By Saturday, a for sale sign went up. Price slashed 20 grand under market. Jenkins told me she'd snapped at the realtor. I'm not living next to him anymore. Him being me, of course. By Sunday, a moving van hauled her crap away. Rick driving, Karen sulking in the passenger seat, Mr. Piddles whining in the back. I waved from my porch, nice and slow. She didn't wave back. I spent Monday fishing, first time since this mess started. Hooked a fat trout, released it, and sat there with the sun on my face, thinking about the absurdity of it all. A week ago, Karen was prancing around with her Oasis banner, thinking she'd outsmarted me with a shady survey and a junkyard fence. Now, she's a cautionary tale. HOA nonsense, ego trips, and a couple of endangered fish flipping her world upside down. All it took was a deed, a phone call, and a little patience. The little guy won this time, boys, and I've got the scars and the fish to prove it. Looking back, it's almost funny. Karen thought she could steamroll me, a 52-year-old widower with nothing but a truck and a fishing rod. She didn't count on the attic, the feds, or the fact that I'm too stubborn to quit. She strutted into this war with glitter and margaritas. I fought back with paper and spite. And when she lost it, ripping out her own fence, yelling at me like I'd burned her house down, she handed me the victory on a silver platter. Satire writes itself sometimes. The creek's quiet now, no more chainsaws, no more karaoke, no more Karen. Neighbors stop by, ask what happened, and I just shrug. She messed with the wrong creek. They laugh, slap my back, offer a beer. Gary's been scarce. Probably rewriting HOA rules to include, don't piss off the feds. The Millers even apologized for staying neutral. I told him no hard feelings. Jenkins keeps asking for that meltdown video. I might show him, might not. It's my trump card if Karen ever crawls back. Sitting here, pole in hand, I can't help but smile. This was more than a property spat. It was a stand for every guy who's had a Karen try to fence off his life. Maybe your Karen was a boss, a neighbor, an ex-point is sometimes you fight and sometimes you win. I did both. Here's to cold beer, good fish, and Karen-free creeks. May they flow forever. Now, if you love this tale of Karen getting smoked, hit that like button. Give it a big OL smash for me. Share it with your buddies at the bar, the bait shop, wherever you grizzled old-timers hang out. Drop a comment below. Tell me your own Karen stories, your own fights for what's yours. I want to hear 'em. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Click that button. Ring the bell so you don't miss the next time some fool picks a fight with the wrong guy. This creek's mine again, and I'm just getting started.